So I have with me the three leaders of premium jets. I think you joined at different moments, some of you, so I won't say co-founders. I don't know if this is how you describe yourself.
2/3 are co-founders.
2/3 are co-founders, exactly. So we have Fabio, Marcel, and Daniel. And so I'll ask them maybe to explain their roles. But to start with, Premium Jets is 45 full-time employees.
Right, yeah.
60 million turnovers, and 3 different jobs, 3 business lines. Can you explain a little bit what you do?
Well, we usually explain the business line that way. We start at aircraft management. So aircraft management is where we actually have a number of 10 aircraft that we manage, which is almost the core really of the business. We do all the planning of the flights, we do everything.
So exactly, in case somebody doesn't own a private jet, which I'm not sure in the audience is happening, can you tell us what it is, aircraft management?
It's basically, if you have an owner of a jet like that, you normally don't really do all the work yourself. That starts employing the crew, planning the flights, doing all the administrative stuff of paying invoices for fuel, for everything that's happening. That's done in aircraft management, and this is what we take care of in the aircraft management as such.
So basically the customer has to only bother about traveling and all the details
yes.
are managed by you.
He gives us a call to say that he wants to go from A to B, and we organize the flight, and we organize everything around it, but it doesn't have to bother whether there is crew available or whether the aircraft is in flying conditions. We take care of the maintenance, which is a big part of an aircraft. It's much more complex than a car, and you really have to take care of that so that it's always in good conditions and in flyable conditions as well.
And so basically we are here to operate that business. We are in a mini airport here. So can you tell us a bit how it works when customers come?
Well, where we have passed through is really the airport. So if a customer comes, he passes through security, which goes a bit quicker when you're a passenger than when we have to bring guests into the airport. And normally, the normal procedure would be that the aircraft is parked out here, engines potentially running. You walk through the facility, you enter the jet, doors are closing, and if the timing is right, you can take off 15 minutes after you've actually arrived with your car.
Mm. Yeah, so basically the average EasyJet delay is the average duration of one of your flights. So you have 2 other business lines? Marcel, maybe?
The second one is aircraft charter. So aircraft that are certified commercially, we can charter them out if the owner of the aircraft doesn't need it. So for example, that Challenger 300 that we see here is available for charter flights. And we actually do exactly the same for charter customers than what you said before. So the customer is calling us saying, I want to fly from A to B. The only difference is that we tell him how much that flight costs. Mm. And then when he agrees to that price, then we organize
So basically it's kind of leveraging unused resources, like my airplane is not going to be generating any turnover, it's not going to be used, so I can put it into the system.
That's
and
exactly
then you guys take care, and I guess you guarantee me, you take care of the insurance, you take care of that the airplane is super clean when I use it.
Yeah.
Is there a sense of airplanes, like the number of hours you can use these devices is limited, and I don't want to let other people use an airplane too much? Or what's the lifespan of an airplane?
Well, that's probably something that you can
Daniel.
answer much
Because
better.
airplanes are actually they can be used very, very often, and
Yes,
they're very strong
Absolutely,
machines.
yes. In fact, I mean, all these private aircraft, if we are honest, they're underused. They could be flying a lot more hours per year, they could be doing a lot more takeoffs and landings per year that they're doing. The average private jet flies somewhere between 400 to 600 hours a year. If you look at an airline like an Airbus that you took from Geneva to Zurich to come here, they fly thousands of hours every year. But the construction is the same, the structure is the same. Yeah. So they're not flying that often. They're aircraft, they're supposed to fly. They're not called ground craft, they're called aircraft. So they're supposed to be up there. And that's what we try to get from these charter aircraft.
I actually heard that airplanes get damaged by staying too long on
That's
the
true.
ground. Is that true?
That's true.
Because the wings are in the wrong position, kind of like they're not. No, that's not the point.
No, it's rather like It's like when you get up after a long and tough night, you know, you have to get in the mood again. That's the same with an airplane. If it was sitting there too long, it has to get back to life.
So if you need someone sometimes to take an airplane on a trip,
you would
ask
volunteer?
Me. Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I'll find a way to keep their wings warm. Daniel, you're in charge of actually the third business line.
Exactly, that is the aircraft sales line. So we are helping our customers to sell a private aircraft or to buy a private aircraft. When somebody wants to buy one, we find out for what is the aircraft needed, what's the trip, what's supposed to do. Do you want new, do you want pre-owned, do you want it for charter or do you want it on your own? So all these questions, and then together with our client, we find the right aircraft. Or if he wants to sell, go in a bigger one, whatever, then we're there to sell the aircraft.
So you basically take care of the whole, like the three business lines. It's like the full suite of service that private jet owner can want.
The marketing logo is one-stop shop.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that because when we come to your building, we see that there are other companies actually on the other side of the runway. There's even more private jet companies. And you guys, 10 years ago, which probably a lot of people were already in business, you think, we have this amazing idea. We're going to do one more private jet company. But of course, that was not one more company. So what was the unique selling proposition that made you believe that you could succeed at this project?
Well, I guess the reason really was that we've been working in that business, all of us, for many years before, and we knew that we can make it slightly different than at least some of the competitors do. We've brought out a logo from owner to owner, which is basically what we try to subscribe. If we're in touch with our aircraft owners, one of the three of us, with each of them. So if he has a problem, he is not calling his key account manager, but he's actually calling one of us to make sure that everything runs smooth.
So there's a personal touch, which maybe your competitors do not have because they're bigger or...
Yeah, or differently run, whichever. And we wanted to focus on, even though it's private aviation, and it sounds very luxurious, but in the end, there are a number of companies which are more focused on being very price sensitive than being focused on premium. And
that must be so terrible. Like, you own a private jet, you're that type of person, and you call and they say, please hold the line, we're going to pick up. Like, I'm calling about a private jet. Like, you're not supposed to direct me to wait. Okay. Yeah. So it's like you basically made service better and more personal, and that was one of your advantage. And what are the other things that you put forward to the customers?
I didn't found, you found it.
One of our biggest goals was not to overgrow or not to grow too fast, because we didn't want to lose exactly what Fabio described before. So we of course we want to grow, but not we don't want to add 10 aircrafts a year, because then you would lose track to the customer or to the aircraft owner, and that was our main target.
That's a very trendy thought, that businesses need to think of growth in different terms, not only like more airplanes, more turnover, but also what you're saying is that better relationships, and it's not something you can grow like crazy, because the way you work just doesn't scale.
But I think it also helped that we did our business plan back in 2009. That was when the finance crisis was on. 2 years before, the whole industry was just going up, and when we would have done the business plan then, it would probably have looked a little bit different to what we actually did.
Was it an advantage to have worked in the industry before? Because in the world of entrepreneurship, very often, you talk about Elon Musk, who's never done cars, and suddenly he comes up with a big disruption. Same for SpaceX, for example. So some people say that it's an advantage never to have worked in an industry, because you look at it with fresh eyes. What was your experience like? Did it bring you positives and negatives?
I can speak for myself. I mean, for me, it was clear it was important that I've worked in that business before. It's basically aircraft management is a service business. What we do is we're a service provider, and to be able to really know what the customers want, and to see how can we do it best, how can we have our internal processes the best way to suit the business best. You need to have some experience in it. You can kind of redo it from that. I mean, to give you an example, when the company we left was also very close to here, and when we left the company, we had 100 employees around these buildings here. And that was, I mean, there's a certain management task involved. It was interesting. Now, if you come to Premium Jet, also where we're going to have the upper afterwards, all the functions are on the one floor. So people are very closely linked together. They're able to communicate, and this close communication gives a clear advantage on service to what we've experienced in the past in some.
So because it allowed you to get knowledge of the pain points of the customers that you'd been there. You, Marcel, what the experience you had in the industry, did it help you?
Well, I would say it definitely helped building our Premium Jet. But I think it's also very important that you don't forget to think every day if you're still doing the right thing. And I mean, we know each other quite a long time already. So that's you have to challenge yourself every day to see if you're still doing the right thing.
Not to go, the right thing, you mean like, not, are you still excited? Do you still want to innovate? Like not to go into some routine?
Yeah.
That leads me to you, Daniel, because you told me you are the accountable manager.
Yes.
Which is a very interesting role, which is basically if there is a problem, you're responsible for it. And then there's a whole hierarchy of your first, like his second, your third, something like that.
Well, if there is a problem, then I would say...
Exactly. It's like the scapegoat.
That's what friends are for.
But exactly. Regulation is a very important part.
And yeah, that's exactly what I want to say to your thoughts of like coming in from as an outsider or as an insider. Aviation is a highly regulated industry. So yes, you can have disruptive ideas, you should have disruptive ideas, but it's very difficult and also very costly to bring these ideas into reality. And the saying about the Uber of private aviation is out there since Uber is out there, but nobody has found it yet. There have been a gazillion of business models that have been tried and tested, and none really work perfectly well so far. So there's also not an EasyJet or a Ryanair of private aviation simply because the economies of scale are not there. So it's tricky, as Marcel said, to challenge yourself to get and find outside of the box thinking, but the box is very rigid. So that's the fun part or the interesting part as well. And as the accountable manager, as the name says, is accountable for everything that happens. The good thing is the accountable manager also has the right that everything happens the way he wants it to. So actually, if I say something, these guys need to do it. You notice actually.
That's pretty good. I think I'm gonna name an accountable manager in my family. Like one of my kids is going to become the accountable manager and be responsible for everything.
And what happens then if the kid breaks the glass?
Yeah, he's responsible because there's written somewhere, "Do not break the glass." I'm pretty sure in Latin somewhere. But it's a big question about how to find the balance between innovation and regulation. And you guys came with this new model that is more personal. You also told me that the way you handle your staff is atypical from your industry, that you have a very low turnover, you have very low churn. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That's also something that basically started before we had Premium Jet. And we tried in our former roles really to make people feel comfortable in what they do, how they do it, and it's obvious it has nothing to do with Premium Jet as such, but if you manage to keep your staff happy without a big turnover on staff, that's an amazing asset. And if we're looking at our current staff, we hardly have turnovers over the last years, less even in the office, slightly more on the crew side. They're a bit less linked to the company because they're flying everywhere. And that's something that we are not only proud of, but I'm really sure that this is an amazing asset to have. People know the customers, they know the processes. Everyone that you have to bring in new, you have to train him and take dispatch, for example. That's where you actually plan all the flights for an aircraft. A dispatcher, to train someone from scratch will take you about 2 years until he's capable of doing. There's no actually formal learning of that. And even if we bring in an experienced dispatcher into our team, until he knows the speciality of all our customers, all our aircraft, that takes at least half a year until he is really fledged and capable of do the work of the others. So therefore, if you're sensible in a way, you try to minimize the risk of turnover as much as you can.
But amazingly, it seems that corporations always gain from treating their employees well, and yet it sounds like we're rediscovering the virtues of that. Can you tell us a little bit the different airplanes? So I think one of you knows airplanes. Is it you, Marcel? Is it you, Daniel?
Pardon?
Daniel. Who knows the airplanes, the different models? And
He's the best.
Daniel. Can you tell us a little bit like the different sizes and the different purpose? So I hear that this one is actually a very new airplane, the new Pilatus.
Exactly.
So you guys are very excited about this one?
Yes, definitely. That's the PC-24, the newest airplane out of Pilatus. It stands in Switzerland. Fantastic airplane. I was somehow involved in the development too. I love it. It's almost like my fourth child a little bit.
So what's special about it?
Well, the thing is that this airplane can land on surfaces that are not concrete. You can land with it in the Australian outback. In fact, around 10 days ago, a video has been published, like the Royal Flying Doctors of Australia are landing on an outback dirt strip with that very jet. It has a big cargo door where you can then load a patient without, twisting and turning. And then it can fly another 2,500 kilometers to bring that patient into a hospital. So it's really a flying intensive care unit in Australia.
What's the range, you said?
That one can fly up to 1,800, 1,900 nautical miles, which is then by 1.852, around 3,500 kilometers.
And how many people can sit in this airplane?
Well, it's a bit like if you look at the brochures with those rental motorhomes, it always says it houses 6 to 8. That means that it's comfortable for 2. You can make it by 4, but if you're more, forget it. And that's the same. It has 8 seats. 4 can travel okay, and 2 is actually the number. That's, by the way, an interesting fact. Regardless of the size of this aircraft you're seeing, the average passenger load in a private jet is 2.5 persons, regardless of how big it is. Sometimes you have 10 in there, sometimes it's only 1, but the average, if you look at it, it's around 2.5.
Okay.
So that's a PC-24, Swiss-built, Swiss-made. A Falcon 7X over here, that's built by Dassault in France. That's a long-range aircraft. That's the same one there in the back is also a 7X, if I see it correctly from over here. Yep. With these planes, you go from here, well, roughly to the middle of the US, I'd say. You're not going all over to the West Coast, but you could for sure make it non-stop to places like Chicago. What else is there that you want to go? No, Seattle is too far. From Zurich, exactly, non-stop.
And I saw, by the way, that if you have a problem with your Falcon jet, there is the mobile phone of the guy you can call for support. It says Dassault Falcon live support.
Line support, not live.
But you can call him. So write the number down. If your Falcon jet falls down, he's the guy to call. Yeah. Like, my computer broke. Please call. I have a problem with my Falcon. So behind and these are obviously more people. So bigger range, more people. It's like what, 20 people in
14.
there?
14. But remember, 2.5.
2.5. Yeah.
And then this is a Legacy 600. Which is actually, this one you can also fly, or you could fly it when you flew with Crossair in the earlier days. They also had this model, which then were called Embraer 135 or 145. It's just from Brazil, exactly from Embraer. They just put 50 or 80 seats in there, and in there are 12 seats, and that's the difference. That's roughly a bit more range than a PC-24, but less than the 7X.
So obviously the big thing that when people think private jet, they think very, very expensive travel. And obviously it's true, but at the same time, it can be competitive when you start to have a group of people. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Is it true that traveling with a private jet is reserved for...
The thing is that it's very easy for the accountants to tell you what the aircraft costs, because there's a purchase price, there's fuel, there's insurance, there's salaries, so it's very easy to list up. Now, what's on the other side? How do you value what you get when you have an aircraft at your disposal? You have your time, you have your privacy, you know exactly with whom you're on the aircraft, so you have security. And what's the price tag you give to that for yourself, for your family, if you're a corporation, for your CEOs, that your business secrets are preserved? I mean, you would not believe how many times I sat on board of an airliner, and interested listening what the guys in front of me were discussing, how they shall make the presentation at the next meeting. Well, I have not been out of the same field, so it wasn't, but things like that. With a private aircraft, you do 3 or 4 meetings the same day. Let's say private banking, how do I get to that? Anyway, private banking, Zurich to Guernsey. There used to be 1 direct flight by airline a day. I don't even think it's there anymore. So when you need to go to see your Guernsey customers, you need to go to Heathrow, change planes, security, yada, 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 spend a day or night or two in the hotel, being unproductive. With the private aircraft, you might not even be in Zurich. You might be in Lausanne. You take off from Lausanne. You might be in Gstaad. You take off from Zaanen. So that's
actually
the value.
There is even a moment where you have like a group of 6 people that it actually becomes cheaper than business class on some routes.
Yes.
I'm asking because Alex, as French, she wants to take to Ibiza for her birthday party. And
so
there's 8 of them.
Ibiza is a difficult place these days. Make sure there's no video.
Yeah.
And then in Ibiza, if the party goes a bit longer, then the aircraft is waiting for you, so you don't have to hurry to the airport.
You can escape. In terms of security, these airplanes are as secure as like airliners, which are very, very secure. I mean, obviously there's very high security in the airplanes, and so this is the same level of security than commercial
From
airplanes.
the construction of the airplanes, for sure, 100%. There's the same certification criteria that these planes have to go through. And as I said, in security, it's even better in that regard, as you know exactly who is on board. There is no 100 people that you don't exactly know who it is. You know exactly who's on board.
And Boeing doesn't make private jets, so we're safe.
But it's also the training of the pilots,
That's
the
airline
maintenance of
standards.
the aircraft. So.
How many different jobs is there in your company? There must be such a large variety of jobs.
That's a good question.
Well, do you also count the people that have 1 job but have 4 hats? Or
Yeah.
no, there is. It's
10, I would say, around.
at least.
At
yes.
least.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
10 to 12.
Yes.
So you're a mini airline, basically. Right now you have 10 airplanes
Yes.
that you're
Yes.
operating. So what are your future plans for premium jets? We heard that growth at all costs is not your objective. You want to keep that personal touch. So where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Almost retired.
That calls for what we call in the VC world a liquidity event. We have some investors here. If somebody wants to buy the company, maybe. No, but how can you grow such a business? Like, would you guys be tempted to open new antennas in other countries, or maybe in the wilder part of the country called Geneva? Or
No, but basically, I think we are internally in discussions to see if we want to kind of expand into Europe in terms of a commercial license. We have a commercial license here in Switzerland, so-called AOC, on which we operate the commercial aircraft that we currently have, which is about half of the fleet, 5 aircraft. So we're looking into that. That would make premium jet a bit more attractive. It's sometimes difficult to have some European customers satisfied by a Swiss commercial registration. So that's something we're looking into. Other than that, the growth is organic. So we're acquiring, we're trying to acquire, or in the work of acquiring customers, to just have a natural growth. And if you would ask me 10 years, 15 to 20 aircraft would be a range, but still in a very similar setup.
so sorry, Marcel, you cannot go on vacation because there's going to be 20 aircraft. They're going to need you. Do we have any questions, sir?
How does Switzerland stack up as a jurisdiction to own a plane versus Jersey or Guernsey Island?
I will repeat the question so that we get it on camera. So how does the regulation of Switzerland in terms of owning a jet compare to other jurisdiction? I think it comes to mind what happens with boats, for example, where people are going to use flags from other countries.
Well, it actually, how should I put it? Swiss are neutral, and that's the thing with the registration a bit too. There's pros to it, there's cons to it. When you register an airplane in Switzerland, the financier like it because there's a so-called aircraft book, so you can register your aircraft in that one, so their property is secured. There's political stability. So all the circumstances that make Switzerland as such attractive are also valid for the registration. Now, from an operational point of view, there's a bit of a disadvantage that we are an EASA member state, the European Aviation Safety Agency, but we're not a EU member state. So that gives you some, let's say, additional hurdles that can be overcome. But as you see, there are some aircraft like M that stands for Isle of Man. If you decide, for example, to operate solely privately and do not want to charter out, let's say there's more convenience, more pros on a registry like the Isle of Man, like San Marino, because of the more rigid requirements that the Swiss law gives you.
You mean Swiss law is rigid? Seriously?
In the German-speaking part, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Like the French speak, but there's no laws. It's beyond the wall. Do you have any other questions, sir? Go ahead.
Industries where there is a small market, as a niche market, and combined with regulation tend to be non-innovative. For example, small planes like Cherokee or Piper, they're basically the same as in Second World War. Nobody wants to compete with it. Nobody wants to make a modern engine. It would be possible, but nobody cares. So is this better in your area of private jets?
So the question is that some small markets do not attract a lot of attention from players, especially when it comes to innovating. And you use the example of making the planes better. That it's not really happening. Some airplanes have been here, mostly unchanged for 50 years. Do you see a lot of innovation happening in your field?
Yeah, yes, innovation, but as you say, in small increments. There's not such a big thing that comes, or there's some things going on like Lilium with their private, urban mobility is the keyword, but in the traditional aviation segment, the innovation is very small step. And the thing is literally what you said, that the regulations is making it so difficult. When I was with Pilatus selling aircraft, customers asked me, can I have a coffee machine inside my aircraft? I said, yes, you can, costs $50,000. They said, you're nuts? I said, no, it costs $200 for the coffee machine, but $49,800 to certify everything, because I have to prove that the coffee machine cannot start the fire, that it has to withstand a 16G impact, and so on, and so on, and so on. So you decide, you know what, I'll skip the coffee machine. And to bring a coffee machine in the airplane, you need to build so many that you get that investment back, and there's like 750 to 800 new private jets are delivered every year. So the economies of scale are simply not working. On the other hand, if you look at the PC-24, the first jet that has really been built to go off-road, a jet with a big cargo door, which no other jet has from the factory. It happens because there is 5 or 6 big players in this industry that try to share that cake of 750 to 800 aircraft, compare with the Boeing and the Airbus, which is a duopoly, delivering thousands of aircraft every year. That's why there is even less competition there. But yes, that's a fact. And yeah, we're flying still around in the Cherokees and Archers of the 1960s, indeed. But then there's also the Cirruses and there's the ultralights, so there is development, but the revolution is very difficult to get in aviation, definitely.
The only revolutionary project I saw in Switzerland this year was a lightweight gyrocopter for 2 medical doctors and a first aid case. It cost $100,000 to build it because it's non-regulated, and it's much cheaper in maintenance than a standard helicopter.
One of the startups in the field is H55 from André Borschberg of Sora Impulse fame, who's working on electrical engines. Like, do you see that as a viable way to propel airplanes in the near future? It's obviously emerging with cars, but is it possible?
Just been in a discussion upstairs about exactly that topic. We think yes, but not tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, so that will take a while. But I think the direction is clear.
It's because, I guess, of the battery. The battery is the limiting factor right now. Yeah, it's the big issue. Do you have any more questions? Nicoletta? Marco?
You guys said you started the company
So I think the question is about the sensitivity of your business to the fluctuations of the economy.
I would say you have a bit of both. On the one hand, you have the aircraft owners, and they tend to be relatively stable. So you kind of keep them, they're not selling and buying too much with the economy. But then if you look at the charter market, that market fluctuates a lot because there's much more people, much more players in there, much more customers in there, and they are more sensitive to the economical cycles, basically. So that's why we have kind of two layers in the company. One is not so critical, and the other one, yes, you feel the economy basically quite quick. Yes.
How many people did you see come in the last 2 years that wanted to pay their private jets with bitcoins?
Well,
because there's been a few Bitcoin millionaires. No?
It's an interesting question. We've actually been one of the first, if not the first company to accept bitcoins for charter flights. We've done that 2 or 3 years back already. Decided we go forward with that. And well, if you want an honest answer, not a single one, not even charter flights. I mean, they could technically pay with bitcoins with us, has never been requested. I mean, it's a hype. Yes, there are bitcoins out there, but it's nothing that
the problem is the price fluctuation. It's like you pay at the beginning of the flight, maybe at the end of the flight, Bitcoin is like 2 times higher. Like, no, please don't take the payment. I'll send you my credit card number. And on the other end, you're calling them, hey, we don't land until you wire us more Bitcoins. Yeah, it can be very, very problematic.
It's a problem.
I think Alex explained that one of the ideas we had when we did these events is that Cornercard really values entrepreneurs, and one of the difficulty of being an entrepreneur is that the only people that can really understand what you go through are other entrepreneurs. And so one of the ideas we wanted to do is create exchanges between people running their own businesses. And so maybe as a final question between us and this amazing champagne and sushis that I saw upstairs, I would like to ask you, the three of you, if there's something you learned and an advice that you would give to fellow entrepreneurs, like think there is a 20-year-old here who wants to launch their business, what would the advice that you would give them, each of you?
I think for me, one of the key things is really to keep to it, to stick to it. If you have the idea of going yourself, you have to follow the idea and continue on it. It's not always that easy. Focus on it and
resilience.
Yes, to go forward. Yeah.
Marcel? Well, I would say think twice and then do it.
Okay, it's the same for having kids. It's like think twice and then don't think 3 times, otherwise you
Isn't
won't.
it there think before doing? No.
Yeah, something like that. And you, Daniel?
Well,
Your advice?
like Marcel demonstrated to us, when he showed the big T-shirt, never give up. There are times that are incredibly hard. There are times you think you have no idea how it's going to go on. But if you fight, if you want to go for it, there is a way. So never give up.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll give you a warm round of applause. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.